parents, the child goes to the teacher who will guide that child.
What do you mean by external moral authority? You use that expression a lot.
Materialism has to do with when you are
Hello, it's wonderful to have all of you back with us here in the studio for our course in Values and Spirituality. For those of you who are following us with these books, we are on page 23 of book number 2, and we're still on Unit 1. We've just discovered that there are 3 different types of teaching methodologies, and today we're going to look into 2 aspects. The first is leadership qualities, and the second is commitment. Sister Denise starts off this paragraph with the following words: leadership is the living expression of deeply held values that are worthy of emulation. Good leadership cannot be separated from spirituality. I really liked those opening 2 lines of that paragraph. It makes a lot of sense, though the world is full of examples of individuals who are leaders, powerful leaders, influential leaders, without an ounce of spirituality. So take us through this.
Think of a leader not so much as someone who's occupying a position of power, but someone whom people follow. And it is, you can use various methods for coming into a position of power, and you will be called a leader. But if nobody's following you, then from that other angle of the meaning of leadership, you're not a leadership, you're more like a tyrant. So we do use the word leaders for people who are in position of political power or economic power, but they maintain their leadership by keeping everybody else under domination. Here we're not talking about that. We're talking about being someone who is an inspiring leader. They may not occupy a position of power, but people watch them, emulate them, and do what they do. And this is why I have this statement: good leadership cannot be separated from spirituality. Because you see, somebody who is a tyrant, spiritually they're really weak. And there's a wonderful play by Shakespeare called Titus Andronicus. And if anybody wants to look at that, they'll really see how tough, strong, aggressive, brutal leadership is engaged in by someone who is spiritually really weak. If you are filled with spiritual power, people will feel it, people will notice it, and they will be drawn to such a person, and they will follow their lead, you see. And we're talking about leadership qualities, we're talking about leadership characteristics, because in a society we're not able, nobody's able to create a flat society. A lot of people tried, but society is naturally hierarchical. But when you impose leadership by spiritually weak people, then the hierarchy is something that people don't like. And so then they try and make a flat society as a reaction. But the problem is not the hierarchy, the problem is people at the top are spiritually weak. Now once you put people at the top who are spiritually powerful, they're not hungry for power, they're not trying to hold on to power, they're just there. And they don't mind whether they're there or not, because it's natural, you see. And so this is the kind of leadership that we're looking at here. And anyone who would like to see the world to be a better place, or would like to see improvements, There's a famous phrase which is usually attributed to Gandhi, be the change you want to see. That is a very interesting expression of this sort of moral leadership.
You go on to say, through deep thought, a good leader transforms information into insight and acts upon it. What information are you referring to?
A person who's a leader is naturally curious and intelligent. And so whenever you're in any kind of position, there's lots and lots of information that you have to have or get, or that comes to you. You will process that information. You will see the implications of that, and you will use that, you will include that in how you handle your situation, and you will get clarity, which will actually carry what you arrived at in your position, how it is when you got there. Then you will understand what to do with it to make it better, greater, and that will correspond with your values. You see, if you have a value that says, you know, people should be inspired and interested, and then they'll be innovative, and then we'll have better product, for example, in a business environment. Your leadership includes all of those things, and then it inspires others, it encourages others to go beyond what they basically have to do. So it's really that you get, you understand, you act, and then others come along.
Is developing oneself spiritually synonymous with leadership?
Personally, I think so.
What makes you say that?
You know, most people in the world, I would say, are spiritually depleted.
So sorry, Sister Denise, can I interrupt you? The reason I'm asking is because I know a lot of spiritual people who are very sincere about their spirituality, both men and women, but who are, I'm not using this word in a derogatory sense, but docile, meek, mild, docile, the sweet, loving, endearing, humble types that aren't in positions of authority or leadership and don't want to be, but who are full spiritually, but who are not necessarily leaders. Tell me how you bring that to leadership.
A person like this is not going to take up a position. They don't feel like it, but whenever anything happens that is maybe a disaster or a shock or some tragedy or something like this, these are the first people to step in and know what to do and be what is needed in an unusual situation, because they have what it takes. They will not be docile when they are needed, and they'll feel it. You know, it's part of their spiritual capacity is to recognize, okay, now I have to step up here.
What do you mean by the words, good leaders know and believe in themselves unequivocally and have no personal illusions? The reason I'm asking this is because although it sounds wonderful on paper, in theory, I know very few people who do not have any personal illusions. We all see ourselves in a certain way, and it turns out to be that not that we're lying to ourselves, but we're really not what we thought we were. There's always something about yourself that you do not know. There's always something about yourself that you have to learn. We all have our insecurities. We all have our fears. This person that you're describing, does she exist?
As you move through life, you get cut down. You may be sidelined, somebody else may be put in position where you have the qualifications and the expectation to move forward. A lot of things happen, and it is said that people who have the potential for greatness will experience very unreasonable obstacles, and they will be having really bad things happen to them, and these bad things in a strange way function as a protection for that person. And this happens to only a few people, and it seems to correlate with those who have the potential for greatness. And not everybody is great. The word great applies to just a few. So, someone who meets disillusionment, they expect something to be a certain way, they find it's not. The feeling of disillusionment is a very unpleasant one. It's very hard to bear, but it's very necessary in order to have no illusions about yourself, your situation, and the other players. So no personal illusions can only occur through disillusionment, because, as you say, people come with plenty of illusions. To believe in yourself is because you have a clean, clear conscience. And you can't believe in yourself if you don't. If you don't have a clear conscience, you use a huge amount of power and energy to cover the fact that you don't believe in yourself.
You have to say more. What does that mean? Are people aware that they're doing what you just say they're doing?
Well, they may not be aware of it, but maybe other people who have the insight can see it when it's in front of them.
Okay, you've got to repeat your previous bomb-dropping statement and elaborate, please.
If you don't believe in yourself and you're filled with self-doubt, you have to shore yourself up. So you may acquire a lot of degrees to convince yourself that you're intelligent, but it doesn't change the fact that you doubt your intelligence. If you think you're a good person, but you're a paedophile behind it all, or something else is going on, you will create this big wall of a persona.
Of respectability.
Yeah. And it's really like too good to be true, because it isn't true. And then when that whole thing comes tumbling down, which sooner or later it will, even perhaps posthumously, then you see that this was a fake person. So a fake person cannot believe in themselves.
Well, if you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. You go on to say, value-based leadership is about empowerment within relationships. Role models live out their innate values through their behavior. We need more detail on that.
A role model is somebody that people look at, emulate, and follow. And who would you follow and look at? Somebody who you feel is walking their talk, someone who you respect. And people watch each other closely, because a lot of people are looking for, who can I really honor? You know, there's a lot of people who you have to respect, but you don't really respect them. It's superficial. But you really would like to have somebody that you really can respect. And so when you see somebody really living their talk, it creates that feeling, you know. And these are real leaders and role models. And they don't have to be in position to be that, but they're doing the job of a leader.
At some point in this paragraph, you use the word value-based leader. That's very beautiful. And unfortunately, the world has too few examples of value-based leaders. Could you tell us what this means? And more specifically, how does one go about cultivating the values of a value-based leader?
The thing is about somebody who is in their personal power is they're not looking for power. They know that they're powerful. People who seek leadership positions know that they're not powerful, and they don't like that. And so the leadership position is desirable for them because it gives them the illusion of being powerful, and they can wield power, but very often they will abuse power. Someone who's in their power, who's who knows that they're powerful, who's not lusting after power, they will also not abuse power. So this is what I mean by value-based leadership. They operate according to their values, not according to their unfulfillable desires.
Let us move on to the subject of commitment contained at the bottom of page 23. Tell us why commitment is essential to one's spiritual progress and one's value-based life.
Commitment is important because whenever you want to do something good, there's plenty of opposition, plenty of obstacles, and you have to deal with that. It's just a phenomenon, it goes with the territory. And so if you have commitment, and along with commitment, I think personal discipline comes, perseverance comes, the willingness that no matter how many times you fall down or get thrown down, you'll climb back up again, and you just will not take no for an answer. So it's a very powerful inner strength to move forward. I think one of your words for it is stick-to-itism.
Itiveness. Yes, I remember that. Sister Denise, how does one who is interested in spiritual progress and interested in bringing out the best in themselves, how does that person deal with failure? An individual experiences failure on a daily basis. You have failure in your personal life. You may have people coming into your life whom you do not want there. You may have people leaving your life who you would want there. You have failures as far as your profession is concerned, failure as far as your body is concerned. We get it from all sides. How does one deal with these knocks in the context of commitment?
You know, failure has bad press. It's considered to be a bad thing. But I think someone who is studying spiritually, they soon find out that failure is good.
It may be good, but it still feels horrible.
Well, that's the thing. What it is and how it feels may not be the same thing, usually isn't the same thing.
Okay, you have to tell us more about that, because most of us go with, I feel this way, therefore it is this way. And you are saying not?
Right. This goes back to one of the principles of spirituality, which says that appearances are deceptive. What it feels like isn't necessarily what it is. And this is why we give importance to the intellect, which will evaluate through other criteria than what it feels like as to whether something is good or bad. So as you said, failure feels really bad. But what happens when a person fails is they have to go back to the drawing board and see, okay, why did I fail? That's very good. Because if you didn't fail, you would be continuing with some approaches, some activities that take you not to the place where you want. So failure is a wonderful situation which draws your attention to the fact that what you're doing is not what you think you're doing, or how you're doing it is not working the way you expect it to. So failure wakes you up. It strengthens you. Because, you know, if everything is easy, you don't develop resilience and strength, and sooner or later you're going to need that. And so if you have a string of failures in the early part of your development, the long-term effect is a certain amount of humility, because of course failure takes out your ego, and you can be more respectful of other people, more inclusive of other people. You will not have that arrogance which says, you know, look at me, how wonderful I am, because when you fail you can't do that. So then you have to learn also how to deal with these really bad feelings and get past them and get on with it, so that you don't allow really negative feelings to get you down.
You mentioned resilience and strength as two of the benefits of learning how to deal with failure. Could you tell us why these two values are so important as far as one's spiritual progress is concerned? And Sister Denise, the other thing that I'm interested in is you said in a previous episode, just developing virtues aren't enough. One also needs powers. As far as commitment and leadership is concerned, could you tell us what powers take you there and keep you there?
When you have a nice ideal and a high aspiration, you see that and you say, yes, let's go there. You do not understand at that time what it takes to get there. And if you want to rise, there's going to be many, many things to stop you. And there's a wonderful story that's told by Dadi Prakash Mani, who was one of the big leaders of the Brahma Kumaris. And she was asked, well, how do you become a leader? There's a bit of a word play on it. And she gave the example of a particular dish called vara, dahi vara. It's a very, very tasty dish. But in order to make that food, that grain has to be subjected to being boiled in oil, soaked in cold water, chili, all the various things that a person has to go through before they finally are in a powerful position of leadership, because without that leader is not strong. Another example is, an alfalfa seed, it grows quite big, quite quick, but it flops really quickly. An oak tree grows very slowly, but it doesn't fall over, So it's just necessary as part of human development to understand that having obstacles, being put down, pushed down, whatever, do not take it personally. Do not consider it anything other than a strengthening process. And that depends on your attitude, because if you take it to mean that you're weak and you're a failure, then you won't actually go and develop the resilience. So you do need to interpret it in a way that is good for you.
Obviously, one's attitude plays a huge role in it, doesn't it? Because when one fails, you think, I am a failure. You don't think, I have failed. And so your commitment to yourself has to simply look at your failure as an obstacle, not the end of your journey.
Exactly, and this is why in the earlier paragraph it mentioned that a leader believes in themselves unequivocally. If you don't believe in yourself, you will interpret a failure to mean that you are a failure. If you believe in yourself, you'll think a failure is just part of the course, and then you just get on with it.
We're about to say goodbye to our viewers. Is there any last thoughts or sentiments you'd like to leave them with before we do so?
Yes, I think that leadership and commitment is not something that you want in order to impress other people or something like this. You want to be a leader of your own self. You want to be true to yourself. You want to be really proud of yourself. And I think that one of the highest values is if you are right with yourself. You see, then you can move forward with full confidence and you're fully in your power. A lot of people do not have this just to start with, right? You develop this, and many setbacks will happen, but not to consider those setbacks to mean that you don't deserve to move forward, or you're unworthy, or you're not really competent. These are just, what we say as grist for the mill. This is something for you to push against so that you become stronger and experienced.
Sister Denise, I'd really wish to thank you on behalf of the viewer. Today was such a beautiful lesson. Something simple. It may have been something that you've heard before, but the manner in which it was shared and the example that we have of Sister Denise's life herself, that itself is to me the best proof of leadership and commitment. So thank you, Sister Denise.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you again for the next episode. Take care and goodbye.